Here we go. Good. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Let's do a quick go around, introduce ourselves, and then if there's anything you'd like to talk about today, I had put out there on Perfect Connections. Yuji has a question just about resources available and accommodations for families with children with special needs. So we can talk about that a bit today. But also, as we go around, if you have anything particular you'd like to ask or whatever, then we can do that. I'll start off. I'm Susan Walker, formerly with the University of Minnesota, and now with the World. And I will turn it over to the lovely and talented Sarah Fritsch.
I'm Sarah Fritsch. I work for Big Lake Early Childhood, and yeah, that's what I do. That's me. I'm passing it to Nikki.
Hello, I'm Nikki Murphy, and I am a parent and family educator and home visitor in Robbinsdale area schools. And I will go to Yuji.
My name is Yuji, and I'm a licensed parent editor from Minnesota, and now I'm working for a nonprofit organization in New York City. It's called Family Kind, and we are developing a ECFE-like program in New York. So I'm excited. Thank you. I will pass to Becca.
I'm Becca Coring, and I'm a half-time, I think, parent educator in Maplewood, Oakdale, North St. Paul, which is 622. I'll pass it to Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wenner. I'm a parent educator in Minnetonka, and don't have anything particular in my mind today. I'm just really happy to be here. It seems like every Friday my Fridays get gobbled up with staff meetings, so I'm glad to be here. And I will pass it to Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Copenhaver. I'm a parent educator in northern Minnesota in Cloquet. And I'm at the U for my master's right now as well for licensure in the program. And I will pass it off to Nancy.
Hello, I'm Nancy Trahey. I'm a parenting educator for Albany School District. I also do home visits for them. And I'll pass it back to Susan.
Great. Well, again, hello, everyone. Oh, and I see Katie is joining us. So, Katie, we won't put you on the spot. We just see your name. So you can introduce yourself when you're able to. And she's back. She's here. So now I will turn it over to you, Katie. Katie, you want to say hi?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie from Jordan, parent educator. Are we saying anything special today, what we want to talk about, or just?
Yeah. So if there's something in particular you'd like to talk about today?
Today or whenever, but I've always been curious. So in my district, the home visits are done by the early childhood special education teachers and like the speech and language pathologist. And I would love to know how, I know a lot of you do home visits, and I just am curious how to go about that, how, because I would be interested in doing that sometime, but I don't know how to get it started. So not like a burning thing though. So it doesn't have to be today. I know our time goes quickly, so.
Yeah.
Katie, this is a plug for the Menafee conference. I don't know if you're going to be at Menafee this year, but Jenny Lewing and Kari Sawyer and I are, and a couple other people are going to put together a home visiting 2-part session for Menafee this year. So I think over the past number of years, that has been a huge interest, and we keep hearing like, let's talk about this in many, many communities. I think I'm hearing things similar to what you're sharing. So yeah, I think those will be good sessions. And if you're not there, perhaps we'll be able to connect, and people will be able to share what they take from that too.
Great. Thank you, Nikki. That sounds awesome. Was I the last one to go, or is there anybody else?
You're the last one in. Yeah, and it's very possible that with our discussion about accommodating and supporting families with special needs children, that we could be circling back around to that topic anyway. So, hearing no other burning topics, let's turn to Yuji's question. So Yuji actually posed this last week. So I appreciate more of you being here as you're able to. So we have kind of a richer discussion about this. So I'm going to turn it over to Yuji so that she can pose more specifically, since, special needs families, very big topic, right? And so exactly what that means specifically for her question. So Yuji, would you take it over and let us know how we can help you?
Thank you so much. And this, the cause is I was writing a grant in the New York City Community Trust. So their purpose is to support families with children with disabilities. And so our plan is, our approach is based on parenting education, parent and family education, right? So, and from research, we see like the almost top, like one of the top challenges families are facing is actually social isolation from mainstream. So when parents, due to many other challenges, finance and parking and all that, right? So they do not have opportunities to interact with other family, with other parents, they don't, they do not have child with disability. So, and also, so many parents with children with disability, they will ask not bring their disabled child to certain events. And it's really painful for them. So, and this is, so that based on the research, we designed this, like we are, kind of visioning this way through supporting the parents. Therefore, the parents can support their families and their children. So I would like to learn how I know ECFE has special needs like parenting education, right? So, and I want to learn how do you run your program and how do you help the parents, the families, to address this social isolation, the emotional challenges, stress, right? So that is my question. And also like in other aspect, like we revision this, group parent education where it's universal, every parent with all background can join. Also, we do see like the necessity to provide one-on-one sessions, with the expertise, the experts, they are professional in certain areas of the disability, right? Mental disability, cognitive, and physical. So we vision that, and then I would like to hear, your experience and the insight. Thank you. I'm excited.
I will comment just because I know I've only probably got about 5 minutes left to stay here today. A couple things. One, I think there's a lot of current research that talks about strength-based models. And we know that parents do better supporting their children when the children are also being guided via a strength-based model. So like the IEP meetings or the IFSP meetings that occur, if the language that is being used is not coming from a strengths-based model, the parents are also internalizing that. And that in turn impacts, it's the whole family systems theory, right? Like they go home and they may have different views of their own kiddos than they would have if we had written things in a strengths-based model. I know that Meg Farrell in her blog post has been talking about the research there. But the other thing that I wanted to comment on is I had shared with Yuji an article that also had to do with, and this is I think Brodsky, I'm not sure if there's a D or not, and Dunn's research on the process that parents go through, kind of the journey of their experience in terms of being aware that something might be, maybe there's a neurodivergence or there's something going on with my kiddo. So awareness. And then when there's actually that diagnosis, they go through liminality and eventually transformation. How do I become an advocate and so Yuji, when you ask this question about how do we support the kids, right? And that via the parents, my biggest question for every visitor, every PE, every district, every organization, is what are we doing to support the parents, right? When those kids go through this journey, because we know that they're experiencing the research is clear about what some of the things that they're experiencing when they're in that awareness phase. And then it goes on to show what they're experiencing during liminality. And there's a lot of concern and questions and then of course, as they go through this, they do go through transformation. And so I think that research could influence maybe some of the work that we're doing, because that is really clear.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
So both, so Sarah and now Ellen have talked about generally about their programs working closely with ECSE, and we sort of touched on that briefly, but could any of you share sort of how does your ECFE program operate independently from and in collaboration with ECSE?
Well, I'll share, last year, our PLC goal was, so we don't choose our PLCs. We are placed in our PLCs by our administration. And last year, my co-teacher and I were put in a PLC with early intervention teachers. And we were like, okay, we have to come up with some goal. So the goal we came up with was to increase the number of families receiving services, to increase how many of them came to ECFE events. Most of them, they came to our evening events. But Libby, like, what many families started coming to events and how many families did we get up to for PLC last year? We had one family coming to an ECFE event. We plugged them into classes. We plugged them to come to events, open gyms, playground play. Was it like 30? We went from one family to 30 families. And they maybe only came one time, but it was all very direct invitation. So Libby my co-teacher made flyers, and our ECSE teachers like, come to this really fun event. So it was very direct. And then we had a lot of families come into classes. Yeah, we made sure they felt comfortable and welcome. So, when you have a parent who's got a kiddo in referral and they're bouncing off the walls and climbing everything, we're like, oh, no problem. We've seen that before. You know what I mean? Like, we just really make those families with special needs kiddos feel really welcoming. And we got a pretty nice pats on the back from special ed who are like, ECFE is so good at making families feel welcome. And I think that takes a staff that's good at it. I think there are some staff who are, maybe not as welcoming or expect certain behavior in the classroom. And so it can be a little bit harder to let those kiddos who have some special needs do their thing, and for parents to feel really welcome. So that was our win last year, and that was a PLC goal, and we crushed it. So.
I kind of feel like, similar to what people are saying and what I'm reading in the chat, that in our district, we've just done, I think, a really good job of normalizing getting whatever support you need, and that almost anyone benefits from some kind of support. So like, just really making it as normal as possible and talking about developmental concerns. And I'm pretty sure that, with the exception of my infants class, every single class has several kids who are getting some kind of services. Like they're usually not high needs though. So like it's kind of those like there's a little bit of a speech delay or there's a little bit of a motor delay, those kind of things. In birth to 3 that they're getting special ed. I wish that we had more connection staff to staff because we don't know who among our kids like have an IEP or have something going on until parents share it with us for the most part. And then sometimes kids who are overage or who are 3 or over will have like their speech person or their OT person come to class. So every once in a while we'll have someone because that's where they're getting their services is at school. But there's not enough, I think there's not enough connection between ECFE and ECSE staff. It feels like 2 separate programs that kind of bump up against each other. But I do think that parents feel very supported when they come to ECFE with kids who have special needs. But once again, it's usually kids who have relatively minor special needs. They're just finding out that their child's on the autism spectrum sometimes, but they're not finding out until they're 3 because they've been doing pretty well, like that kind of thing.
Becca, that used to be with us too. We actually used to be in completely separate buildings. And so, like, I remember one time I had a concern about a baby in a family that another early intervention teacher was visiting. And I said, I'm worried about that baby. And she was like, why? And I was like, it's a 4-month-old baby and it doesn't look like a baby at 4 months should look. And she's like, I think she's fine. And so for a long time, we were like, what do you guys know? You don't know anything. But turns out that baby had a very rare genetic disorder. And I knew it like very early on. But being in a separate building was a problem. Now that we're together, we were forced to collaborate with each other. So if you can choose your PLC, choose a PLC with early ECSE, and it's the relationship building. We did not have great relationships until we were forced to do a PLC together. I mean, some of us, like here and there, but if you have a shared goal and maybe you're going to create a class for kids receiving services, or maybe you are going to, I know Kelly that you said this too, like maybe you're going to have an event. We've talked about having an open, like not an open house, but like an evening where we really target families who have kids who are hard. And be like, do you struggle going out in public with your kids? Are you worried about your kids behaving in a way that people will judge you? And that way we bring in the families who are afraid that they're going to be judged because their kids are needing sensory things, right? Or are fresh, like on the spectrum, and they're just figuring it out. But if you have a shared goal, you will create a relationship with your ECFE or with your ECSE team. And I will say, I don't think they thought much of us for a long time. And now we have a fantastic relationship with them. And they come to us for a ton of stuff. But I could not have said that the year of COVID. So a challenge for you. And Kelly, maybe that would help you too.
Let's echo what some of the others have said about that relationship, so that the ECFE and the ECSE folks kind of get each other, talk the same language and understand what each other do. And we currently had a lot of success with our Birth to 2 team really just embraces ECFE. And so we're kind of on her radar. One particular person in that group, where as she's working with families, she's thinking about like, wonder if there's a class that'd be a good fit. And she's made the connection for a few families for us just in the last couple months to place a kid who's on her caseload, their family into one of our classes. And it's been fantastic. It's been really successful. So keeping that communication, soft skill kind of stuff going.
So I'm curious about state level coordination on this stuff, so that is there are there resources or collaborations that you all are aware of through the Department of Ed between ECFE and ECSE, or shared trainings, or I'm just thinking about sort of the kind of support that you all might seek if you were looking to establish more collaborations, or and then I also think about, and I am not good on this at all, so that's why I'm asking, is also like screening, and then you know, screening services for early detection and that sort of thing. So I guess my basic question is, beyond your school districts, what kind of collaboration or connections do you see between ECFE and ECSE, or for resources for families with special needs children at the state level? Crickets. So, well, one would hope that this new department, right, that's being created would help some of that. Part of the reason too that I asked usually if her agency was partnering is, so often I think of individual families, right, that when services are so siloed and they're not coordinated or information isn't shared, you know, how hard that is on the individual family, because they're trying to make sense of different pieces of information, when what you want is to you know, like have less stress in your life rather than trying to piece things together. So usually you said that your agency is partnering with hospitals.
Yeah, we are building the partnership with hospitals. You know, they serve children and adolescents. Many of the, you know, like are like I would say neurodivergent children. Yes, and yeah, that is like I would see it's a very obvious, you know, focus on.
So will your agency be working with families with children, like school age children?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so not early childhood.
Both. So we have like a 0 to 18, and then this grant is specifically for families with children school age. But we do offer 0 to 18 at our program. I mean, our organization. We offer 0 to 18.
Okay. So is this useful to you, Yuji?
Oh yeah, this is very helpful.
Resource sharing, whatever.
Yes, and I also wonder, like at ECSE, right? So do they also emphasize supporting parents, like parenting education at ECSE?
I think it depends.
I think sort of when they remember, like in my district, like it's just maybe not always first and forefront in their minds. But my personal experience with early childhood special ed as a parent in St. Paul was that the teacher who came to our house to work with my oldest when he was 2 very much saw her role as teaching me how to teach my kiddo, because I was like we always say, the first and most important teacher, and I was there day in, day out, and she was coming once a week. So in terms of that one-on-one, feeling like a big part of her job was to help me figure out how I could support Sam, that was definitely part of what she was doing. But she, I don't think ever once mentioned ECFE. I was already in ECFE, you know, so, but I think sometimes they forget that there's another way to get that parent support as well. So if it's not something, that's why the relationship between ECFE and ECSE is so important, because if you're in regular connection and communication, then it's going to be more forefront of your mind. Oh, you know, there might be a class you could go to, and, you know, having, like we refer through Help Me Grow or something when we see an issue where a child might benefit from special ed to get screened or evaluated. But I think a lot of times other people in our district kind of forget we exist. So
I just had the ed district, one of the birth to through two people coming to speak to my classes this week and next. And she's been doing this a long time. She's also a parent in our district and knows me from bringing her own kids to ECFE like almost 2 decades ago. She explained that is a part of the model. The birth to, through two program is supposed to be more parent education, you know, just like anybody though, some do a better job of that than others. She's awesome, but you know, and and once they hit 3 and they're in the elementary school for programming or services like maybe speech, our speech pathologist does an awesome job with parent education. That's very much a part of her program. The ECSE teachers that we have right now are new to our district and, you know, and collaborating with their classroom teachers for their students. And I think the parent part is kind of back page, but maybe because they're new, they're getting their feet underneath them. I have a son-in-law who's a middle school special education teacher, and their focus is definitely on the child at school. Here's the thing. I don't know about any of your districts, but in his district and ours and the one I live in, the special ed teachers have way more than they should have on their caseload. They are so overwhelmed. They can't do the things they would like to do because they just simply are, they're drowning. They're trying really hard. They're swimming really fast to keep their head above water. I don't know about other parts of the state, but here in central Minnesota, there's just simply a shortage of licensed special ed and early childhood licensed special ed teachers. So
I heard of this shortage, I mean, almost everywhere. In New York too. So
Okay.
schools desperately need this kind of services that, you know, support. They short of staff, they don't have the specialists, you know. So, I mean, that is what I heard.
Yeah. So as a result, you can imagine the parent part of it is not at the forefront. Yeah. Except in communication, you know, you have to communicate with them, but education wise, parent education. Yeah. That's my 2 cents.
You know, Nancy, I think that might also be a reason why parents they're so short of support, because you know the shortage of in the supporting the child direct services, and then you know, parents are secondary in this consideration, so they don't have a support at all. Like last time, I exchanged with another parent educator, right? So she said, when her son was in 2nd grade, and she invited some, you know, like she hosted a birthday party and invited, you know, neighborhood kid, and one mom cried. She said they were never invited to a birthday party because of her child's disability. Never. Yeah. That was interesting. That was the first time at 2nd grade.
That's heartbreaking.
I wrote this. I shared this story in the grant writing, you know, the grant application, and I remember, you know, we talked about the power of stories, and that, you know, I feel, yeah, I just hope we can find a way to help those parents. They're so lonely. They have to, they worry for their child with a disability, and they have to worry for the other, the siblings who don't have disability, because the siblings are teased and bullied because of, you know, they have brother and sister, you know, and also these siblings, they have extra burden for housekeeping, you know, for housework and other things. So, and the parents, you know, like they have to worry for all the children and themselves, you know, it's really It's not secondary, the third level.
I
You-
had a parent last year, she was the parent of a special needs girl and was encouraged to come to class, by her, by the little girl's, teacher. And so I feel like the mom almost felt like she was required to be there, although she was not. But when I would do a lesson, mom would kind of sit there and kind of act like, you know, well, this doesn't apply to me because of my daughter. A lot of it did. And how do you get the parents to see that this does apply to all kids? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, she just kind of sat there like, well, my child is different, so this doesn't really apply to me. I just did not agree. So have you had that happen? And what do you say, I guess?
You know, Sarah shared that Sarah had parents, you know, with children with disability in the group, right? And then when you talk about like, and she was just, oh my God, I thought only my child threw 1 hour tantrum because my child had disability. Now I learned other families, you know, their child threw a 2-hour tantrum without disability. So, you know, I think when there's something, there can be some kind of sharing, exchange, you know, from that. Maybe the topics, like, maybe the time was not there yet, right? Right, yeah, or the topics was not.
So just kind of hearing what the other parents are going through
Yeah.
and learning that it is not very different from, okay, sure.
I think pushing it will make her push back harder at like, nope, this isn't me. As having been in that position a little bit with my oldest when he was ECFE age, it's a defense mechanism to feeling judged or shamed for doing things differently than the other parents. So it's to protect yourself, to be like, oh, well, my kid's different, and that's why I'm doing things this way. Please don't judge me, is the like unwritten. I remember feeling pressure of like, we should be encouraging kids to do things independently. And when my child was older than peers, I was still doing things for him. And I felt kind of defensive about that. And it wasn't until he was 7 that he got a diagnosis. And it was like, actually, you were doing the perfect scaffolding. Like, you were giving him exactly what he needed, even if he needed more than the other kids. But I know I had kind of a defensive feeling of like, I know I'm not doing everything right, you know, and this is why. So even though you're probably spot on, Katie, that all of these things, or many of them, or most of them, do apply and would be helpful, if you insist to her that no, they do, you'll probably get more pushback because people will just dig their heels in. But if she's just continuing to hear it and other parents and their experiences, and starting to normalize like the range of normal, I think that is more impactful than the direct, this is for you too. That would be my take.
Yeah, because of course, Katie, you and her classmates aren't doing, you guys are probably not judging her at all. But I think there's lots of reasons why people come with kind of like Becca was saying, a defensive shield around their heart for whatever reason, in, you know, before they even step their foot in the ECFE classroom, and they've learned that's a coping strategy for them. They've learned that coping strategy. And so I think Becca's absolutely right that when you do your wonderful things in supporting all the parents and accepting differences, and the other parents then are also behaving that way, probably eventually her, or maybe, you know, if she's open to it, she'll, yeah, feel a little safer. Yeah.
And the thing about a lot of our work is we don't always get to see the impact that we have. It might be when her kiddo's 8 or 9, and those things come back in her mind of like, wait, this or that. We don't get to see that always, only being with them for a year or two.
Another thing that that we've had a class that we've offered, kind of on again, off again, is an ECFE collaborative class with ECSE, where the families are kind of specifically invited to be in the class, and it's run like a traditional ECFE class, but there's a birth to two teacher in the children's room. And just because we're a small district and we just don't always have the numbers to make it run, it hasn't always gone. But when it has, that parent ed time, a lot of it is just kind of parent ed we would go through, the topics we would touch on anyway. But it is that chance for parents to kind of connect with one another, kind of speaking to some of the comments earlier about parents just feeling so isolated and feeling like, I'm the only one. It's only me. And so that kind of gives them a little more feeling of connection and community. But the class didn't go this year, but we keep hoping.
Yeah, I was just commenting on Becca's note about St. Paul having co-taught ECFE, ECSE teachers. I just think, again, any of those collaborations are fabulous because, the ECFE teachers are learning from the ECSE teachers. And there's a crap ton that the ECSE teachers can learn from facilitating, because most of my experience too, I've just been stunned from graduate students who have come in who have a background in like marriage and family therapy, or they have a background in working with families with children with special needs. Maybe they've worked as social workers or whatever, but they'll all say everything goes to the child, like all of the money, all of the, everything goes to the child. And all of my services go to that child, almost as though, oh, and they also have a family. How about that? And so, unless there's that conscientious coordination with the parents, they can feel left out. But also, even through services like through the school district, when those services are so isolated or so separate, right, that parents can go to one, then they go to the other, and so to have those settings, of collaboration, I think is just amazing. And then I also think about a child with special needs is not a child with special needs, right? I mean, there's all kinds of differences in abilities. And so, I remember when I was working with St. Paul, there was a family and the child had a neuromuscular, challenge, and then others would talk about their children who were, on the autism spectrum. And so if you're a parent, sometimes there are those kind of common topics about, I know my child isn't like other children, and I just want to feel not alone, right? I want to feel supported. But at times it's really nice for me to be with parents of pretty sort of neurotypical children, because parenting is parenting, right? And they're frustrated at their kids too, or they're frustrated at professional services that, fail them, or the school district that is doing whatever, like those common kind of parenting topics, because, you want to feel like your needs are being met. But on the other hand, to just isolate parents with children with special needs is like, then they don't feel, then it's just like, but I'm a parent too, right? And then, and so, anyway, this is all under, for me, the heading of just, more and more when I've seen the teachers can collaborate and services can collaborate, because that's what the parents' world is, right? I'm also a parent, and I'm a human being, and I also have a family, and I have other children, and I'm a worker, and I live in this community, right? I'm many, many things. And I have this child who, also needs my attention for these particular things. So I really feel fortunate. I mean, I feel that like in St. Paul, when you have the co-taught classes.
So,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Go ahead, Becca.
I feel like my district in particular does a much better job of collaborating gen ed and special ed in preschool. They have a number of co-taught preschool classes, but it's that missing piece of the parents that we don't have that as much with the ECFE. But ECSE and early childhood general ed definitely do a lot of working together, which I think is really cool because it's normalizing different abilities. And also, some of my friends who are preschool teachers say that when you have an exclusively autistic class, for instance, or an exclusive class that's just kids who have IEPs, they have fewer good models. Like they're not seeing the thing they're supposed to be striving for at all. And kids who are in gen ed don't get a chance to see people who are different. So like having the combined co-taught classes, they've seen as being pretty beneficial for everybody. But yeah, no parent connection there.
I just shared a link in the chat. I mean, this is a very great article, gathered multiple studies, you know, into his analysis, right? So he said, parents' perception and reaction to, you know, how, you know, like parenting, in their, like with parenting their children, you know, with disability impact the whole families, you know, like the every member of the family. So it's really like a parenting. I mean, I would say from that standpoint, like parenting is really the core of, you know, how they will react and, you know, like belief system and how so that impact their, I would say, attitude of, you know, in this process that directly influence, you know, their life quality, well-being.
So Yuji, I'm curious, for the sort of a give back to the group, what agency is it that you wrote the grant to? And
This is
specifically,
oh,
what were they funding? So were they funding people? Were they funding resources? Were they funding materials, capital improvement, that sort of thing?
Thank you. That is a good question. This is the first time I get in touch with this kind of the government agency, I would say. It is called New York Community Trust. And they fund like I think they they have very big focus on disability, like serving children with disability and their families, right? So they like they said, New York City has is a home to 250,000 children with disabilities. And so they want to, you know, improve their lives, and so they kind of have a big portion of their funding local, you know, and they only fund the organizations they serve the 5 boroughs within New York City. So this is the first time I kind of learn about them. So it seems like they have this focus, and I can share the website with. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Yuji.
Give me a minute.
As you noted, a lot of times grantors or foundations will be location specific. So in your case with New York City, that would make sense. And other times they'll be more national, or there'll be private foundations, or there'll be government monies. Did your grant, I'm just curious, did it require a collaboration and a partnership?
They do not require you demonstrate that, but they require a very specific program planning and a narrative. And so in that you do need to lay out your timeline of, you know, the short-term timeline. For example, I gave 1 year, right, timeline, and also like your plan for, you know, the future development of this program. So they want you to be to sustain the program.
Mhm.
So those, yes, and they didn't require match dollar.
Okay.
So that is, yeah, that is
And then
kind of
did they ask for, and friends from the university, no, I have to ask this. Did they request or require an evaluation plan of your program?
yeah, they do. They request to provide how do you measure the success of the program.
Mhm.
And so yes, I gave you know, a list of, you know, like steps, 8 steps, right? How to evaluate, you know, and that, you know, but they only they allow you to only like I mean, the narrative and the plans, you can only the link could be within 5 pages, so not much detail, but
Right.
you need to show you have this, you know, things in place.
Interesting. Yep, not surprising. I'm glad they, you know, they want to be able to get through a lot of proposals, I'm sure. And so the shorter that they are, the faster they can go through them. So I think one of the biggest challenges of grant writing is not the idea, but in being able to phrase it in a very efficient way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked like 3 days, whole day, you know, during the MLK holiday. So, you know, and I feel like one thing is positive. I'm very happy to see. So the government, even the state, you know, state grants. So they are very flexible now. So they do not require evidence-based program. They are open to research based or research informed, practice approved, all that.
Mhm.
So I think that is a new trend in grants application.
Mhm. Good. And is this money for 1 year or for 5 years or
So up to 3 years.
up to 3? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
good. And when will you find out if you get the funds?
They say they will make this in April and June. I don't understand what does that mean, April and June. So maybe some awards could be decided in April, and another, you know, will be. It sounds like it could be multiple rewards. It is small amount, but you know, could be more. You know, more organizations be awarded. So we'll see. I mean, I do not know if they share the value. Like as you said, right? Most of the money go to direct, like to the child. Everything to the child, and I believe my proposal might be the first one focused on parents, right? I do not know if they share this value, if you know, if they agree with this, and it would be a big celebration to our field if they value parenting, right? And I definitely will share with you.
Well, good luck with that. Good for you for grant writing is not an easy thing. So good for you for finding a funding possibility and putting the time and effort into it. It's always a great learning opportunity.
Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, and I just so appreciate all the information shared within our group. And because if we got this funding, all this information will be used. We will be, you know, like, you know, we definitely, I mean, gosh, this is a exploration, right? So you know, we do have a team of experts that they're trained in special needs, you know, like professionals. But parenting, how can we integrate this with parenting? That is a new approach. Thank you so much, everyone.
It's frustrating honestly, in this day and age that, we're still talking about this, and that, services for families are so splintered that, we're excited when people in the special education area, are like notice that there are families when it shouldn't be that way. And then folks who support families are like grasping at what kind of resources are available for families with special needs kids and seeking those collaborations. And, and I just think of all of the folks who work with families who could benefit from working alongside all of you. Because my experience with a lot of very well-meaning, quote unquote, family professionals and teachers is that, like nobody really prepares them to work with adults, to facilitate adult learning, to support parents as parents like you guys do. And so any of those professionals, I think, benefit tremendously if they had more access to programs like ECFE. So, but anyway, well, here we are towards the end of our meeting time. Thank you, everybody. We are going to continue for a brief time talking about planning for the 2024 retreat, but I'll turn off the camera for that. Anybody want to say anything else while we do have the camera going? Any questions, any follow-up that you want to do for next week?
Katie had a topic. Maybe we could do that one next week. Right, Katie? Didn't you have something when you first got here that?
Yeah, I was just curious how, about home visiting. Like I said, most of the home visiting done in my district is for special education families. So how would I even locate families to visit? Or, maybe this is
Nikki offered there was going to be a topic at Menifee, but I think it could be a good topic for us to. And if we announce it like you did this time, it was so great. I think then people will know that that's coming up.
Yeah, I just noticed that a lot of the people on this call do home visiting. So I've always been kind of curious, well, how does that work? So,
I think another trend, just that I like being in my position because I'm less granular and more sort of global, and also with the benefit of time with doing our Zoom calls and meetings over the last few years, is that, if somebody becomes a parenting educator and then they move into a district, and so what they know of ECFE is what their district provides. Or maybe like in Becca's case, she was a parent in ECFE and then became a parenting educator. So she certainly has the experience from St. Paul while she's also in Maplewood. But a lot of times, so like Katie, I could easily see if I was say Nikki and I worked in Robbinsdale, my response would be, I don't know, it's always been that way. Like my district has always had like home visiting services. And so I appreciate you bringing up the question, Katie, because a lot of us, we just know what we know what our programs do, but when the question is asked, it's great learning for everybody, because, then it opens up, well, how did that get started? Or is it for, is it like the HUGS program, or is it for specific families, or was that earmarked 10 years ago through a grant, that was written, or is this part of this huge home visitor initiative, right? That is grant funded and has federal dollars to it and things like that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
And we will bring it up. We will talk about that next week. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording, and then any of you who would, so I'll say goodbye to our home audience. Bye. We'll see you next week.